Hey there, book people. Thank you very much for joining in. Today I'm going to be going over the books that I was able to read in June. I was able to get 5 books taken care of. The first 2 books that I read in the month of June was The Fox, which is book 2 of 4 of the Inda Quartet, and The King's Shield, or King's Shield, I guess there's no "the" in it, which is book 3 out of 4 of the Inda Quartet. The Fox, I really enjoyed. I sped through it. The storyline kept you engaged. There was a lot of action. About halfway through the book, there was a part in the story that was as exciting and interesting and compelling as most ends of fantasy novels are. And like I said, that was in the middle of the second book. I really enjoyed the character development in this book. I came to really like a couple of the side characters in this book. I ended it. I would give this one like an 8 out of 10 stars. It was pretty solid, especially after the first book, and left me a little bit I thought it laid a pretty good foundation, but I wasn't sure going forward. The Fox got me really excited to continue on with the Inda Quartet. So excited that I immediately jumped into King's Shield. And King's Shield was a little bit of a bummer for me. It didn't keep momentum very well. There was a little bit of action, but there was also long time periods of basically the same thing happening over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And maybe she was trying to draw the suspense out, but it just kind of got overdone. There was a relationship that was kind of the same thing. You just kept wondering why they were together. There was a penis euphemism, which, let's be real, unless you're reading like a romantic or erotic book, penis euphemisms shouldn't be in fantasy. The King's Shield was kind of abysmal. I think I would give it like 5.5 stars out of 10. Wasn't all that impressed with it. And it really broke my momentum. I was like 1 paragraph from being done with the 3rd book, and I was seriously contemplating even reading the 4th book. And then Sherwood Smith was just smart enough to reintroduce one of the side characters who I'd really grown to like and enjoy her storyline, and reintroduced her. So I'm going to read the 4th book, and if the 4th book, which is Trees and Shore, is anything like The Fox, it could still be a halfway decent series. But so far, it really feels like Sherwood Smith created such a big story that she lost control over it, and the story just kind of ran away from her. But like I said, if the 4th book is good enough, it can redeem some of that stuff. The next 2 books that I read are actually books that I do not have physical copies of. The first one I read as an ebook, which was Lords of the Sith by Kemp. I think this takes place in the Star Wars universe shortly after the Empire is founded, before the first Death Star, several years before Episode 4, A New Hope. And it basically focuses, there's a resistant movement on one planet led by this Twi'lek named Cam, and Cam has spent all these years developing the resistance. He has recruited, he's stolen and bought weapons, he's fortified bases, so on and so forth, and he decides to risk it all when he finds out that the Emperor and Darth Vader are both going to be visiting his planet at the same time. He sees a great opportunity to strike at the Empire and basically cut the head right off the snake. This book basically falls into 2 parts. There's the part of the plan where Cam's people are attacking a Death Star, and then there is a part of the book that takes place after Vader and the Emperor have landed on the planet. The good things about this book, it had a continuous flow of action. There was always something going on. It was a fairly easy read, which, just to be honest, I think most Star Wars books are. The characters were a little bit likable, a little bit relatable, but nothing great. I felt that the space part of this book was really interesting. Once Vader and the Emperor got on the ground, though, you knew there was no way in hell they were going to be defeated. And even though there was still a lot going on and a lot of action, you were just kind of waiting for Vader and the Emperor to kill everybody, because you knew that was what was going to happen. This is the first book that I've seen Vader portrayed where they do a good job at bridging the gap between the badass killing machine in episodes 4, 5, and 6 to the whiny, snot-nosed, selfish, despicable human being of Hayden Christensen in episodes 1, 2, and 3. It still didn't completely redeem the worst casting choice of all time, but it did make it a little bit more believable that it could have been the same person. I think, honestly, that's what they were trying to do in this book, and I think they did a pretty good job of that. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't think I would recommend this book, really, to anyone. I would give it, I don't know, like a 6, 6.5 stars out of 10. Wasn't upset that I read it. I didn't view it as a waste of time, but I just wasn't overly impressed with it. The next book that I actually listened to on audiobook was Heir to the Jedi by Kevin Hearne, and this was a little bit better, even though it kind of had the same main flaw. And I've said this before, anytime you have a Star Wars book that takes place between episodes 4, 5, and 6 and episodes 1, 2, and 3, or between any of the movies really, there's an air of inevitability which is very hard to overcome. I thought that the Lords of the Sith failed to overcome this obstacle at all. However, in Heir to the Jedi, I think they did a little bit better job. While Lords of the Sith took place before episode 4, Heir to the Jedi takes place a little bit after episode 4, and it's a first-person narrative solely from Luke Skywalker's perspective, which is, as far as I'm aware, the first for a Star Wars book. And I think they did a pretty good job. He's a little bit whiny, he's a little bit unsure of himself, he's a little bit annoying, but I think it also holds true to where Luke's character would have been at that point in the storyline. I thought it was pretty interesting. I liked how the main conflict was not so much, will Luke survive this or not? It was more based around the fact of how much deeper will he be able to delve in the Force by the time this book ends. I thought it raised some very good issues. A lot of what he's dealing with is what the hell he does now. With his help, the Rebellion has been able to destroy a Death Star. You know, they were able to deal a blow to the Empire, but the Empire is still much bigger, much stronger, very much the heavyweight favorite. And while Luke was able to use the Force to destroy the Death Star, he now doesn't have a mentor, or any sort of teacher, or any sort of guide, and he's basically just hanging out unsure of what to do. I felt that this book did a good job of being pretty lighthearted. The basic gist of this book is that Luke is sent out on a mission to rescue someone from the Empire, and he teams up with a female human who all of a sudden I cannot remember her name. Oh, that's awful. Yeah, I can't remember it. But the back and forth between Luke and this female character was very refreshing. It was very lighthearted. It was very humorous. I thought it really did make the story. I was also very impressed. Like I said before, it was an audiobook, and it was narrated by Mark Thompson, who's the same guy who narrated the audiobook Revan, who I read the month before. And Mark Thompson does an absolute incredible job, especially in the Star Wars universe, where you're not just portraying multiple characters or multiple sexes, you're also portraying multiple races and different alien groups and so on and so forth. And I thought it was just absolutely spot on. At this point, I'm such a fan of him that I think I would listen to any book he narrated, almost regardless of what it was, but especially if it's a Star Wars book, I just think he does a very solid job of it. I gave Heir to the Jedi like 7 out of 10 stars. It was enjoyable. I did like it. But I do think it was one of those things where I read it at the wrong time. If I had read it at a different period of time, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. However, the fifth and final book that I read in the month of June was absolutely perfect. It was the right book at the right time, and that is The Seawolf by Jack London. I should, by the time I post this video, have my review up for this video, so I'm just gonna put the link to that video below if you want to hear more about this. But basically, this is about a literary critic, Humphrey Van Whedon, who is riding a ferry across the Bay of San Francisco and is involved in a shipwreck and is basically taken aboard by a sealing schooner who is on its way to Japan to hunt seals, and there's the captain whose name is Wolf Larson, which should tell you a lot about the character. Wolf Larson is someone who's a self-educated man who's come to believe that there is no right or wrong or mortality or eternity, that basically might is right, and that's how he lives his philosophy. It was a very, very good book. It's beautifully, beautifully written. Jack London actually spent several years on a sealing schooner, so he talks about this with a depth of knowledge that is very interesting to read, even though a lot of it went over my head. I would give this one 9.5 out of 10 stars, and this has firmly planted Jack London as my favorite author, at least of right now. I cannot wait to read some more of his stuff because I've yet to read anything of his that I've been anywhere close to disappointed in. That was my month of June reading-wise. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to try and keep up the little bit of momentum that I have and keep some videos coming. Please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Let me know what you read in the month of June, because I've hit a point where I am reading Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson and absolutely love it, but I'm quickly going to be finished and I don't know what I'm going to go on to next. So if you have any thoughts or suggestions, I would love to hear those. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.